And it's one of those weeks, the normal chit chat. We actually just kind of jumped into it, and I didn't hit the record button, so people are going to miss out on that fun.
Yeah, they are going to.
You know, me talking about a duck blocking the road, you talking about a horse blocking the road. So, not a duck, a goose. Sorry, a goose blocking the road.
Life in the suburbs. Yeah. I've never been to your house, but I think you're not in the suburbs. Like, it's got to be like you're like close to an international airport. You're like city proper.
So it's actually funny. I've been talking with a lot of people, family, friends, about the change in this area. So at this point, like, you have like your three main classifications, urban, suburban, rural. I kind of see another classification in there, which is between urban and suburban. And that's what this area has become. It is incredibly densely populated. When I was growing up, like, it was truly the suburbs, what you think of the suburbs. It's where I'm at in proximity to the city, in proximity, because we're not in Philadelphia proper. We're south of the city.
But it's sprawled, right? Like, it's not it's not like you're out in a town and then you drive through country and then you're in Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia, 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 then the suburb. Like, there's no suburbs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it is definitely like that. So it's this kind of designation between urban and suburban. So it's highly congested. Like, at this point, it is incredibly densely populated here, and it's crazy. I think I was telling you at one point, like, sometimes it takes me 25 minutes to get to the highway, just based on traffic trying to get to the local highway.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. We see something similar. There's been so much sprawl in Utah along the kind of Salt Lake I-15 major freeway corridor here, that so many things that were once rural are now just enveloped by city. And we were kind of joking about the horse, but it's crazy to drive through these cities and, like, you drive and there's a pasture full of longhorns and horses and a guy literally out on a combine plowing his field next to this like 8-lane freeway, and it's just such this bizarre kind of juxtaposition of visuals of what is happening. But that's what's happened here with the sprawl, is that you had all this stuff that was built in really rural areas, and over the last 20 or 30 years, the city has grown up around it. In fact, I got into it a little bit yesterday on Twitter about it, because we live very near a military installation that was built, what would that put it, World War II, like 1955-ish. I think that's around World War II.
Post World War II, the Cold War era.
And their job was to do munitions dump and cleanup, detonation, like old munitions from the war. What are we going to do with them? Well, we either have to store them or we have to, like, do away with them somehow. And that's what this military installation was set up to do. And they're still doing it to this day. Not only cleanup, but it's used as a training ground for munitions experts to learn how to properly dispose of munitions. And in 1955, when they built this, it was literally out in the middle of pasture. Like, there was nothing out there. But now the entire, and I don't even want to say the term because it makes me cringe, the entire Silicon Slopes has basically grown up around it. And so you have, these massive businesses, Oracle, Adobe, Microsoft, eBay, Facebook, all have these presences within, like, earshot of this military installation. And not only that, all the housing that has boomed up around it to support that. And yesterday was another one of those days where they were out blowing shit up. And when they do, it completely just rocks my house, And I was complaining, and I always complain about it on Twitter. And someone tweeted back to me and said, well, that's like complaining when you buy a house next to a racetrack. I'm like, man, this is a little bit different. We're not talking about a handful of houses around a noisy racetrack that you can see is there. We're talking about a military installation that is, for the most part, hidden from public view, as they do with military installations. That the city has been allowed to grow up around it, exposing or detonating munitions around 300,000 or 400,000 people. That's a big deal. You know, and you can say all you want, well, you know, buyer beware, your fault for buying near a military installation. But I don't think it's a fair criticism at this point where it's not me. It's about 300,000 or 400,000 people that are in this kind of ring closely located next to this base. So anyway, complete offshoot tangent. I don't like things being blown up in my neighborhood and my house shaking.
No, I get it. It's like, you know, at this point, if you've had this, you know, this suburban area grow up around the military base and you're doing that kind of work, why not relocate it?
It's not like Utah's pressed for space. I mean, we have a whole desert out to the west that's just dead zone. Like no one wants to, like, go blow stuff up out there. You know, you can move your installation 100 miles that way and no one's going to even know you're out there. Yeah.
And then this way you keep, you know, a nice 50-mile radius around it going forward. So you don't have the suburban sprawl go that way.
That's right. And I don't see it going that way. I mean, it is so it's the salt flats. It's basically, you know, the old Lake Bonneville, which is like this barren salt desert. Ain't nobody in their right mind going to be living out there, you know? So anyway.
So speaking of Twitter uproars, you know, yesterday via social media, you kind of caused a stir with a tech vendor. And I think it actually ties in a bit with the topic I want to talk about today.
Okay.
So I'll allow you to set the context on what's going on with that particular vendor. But what I want to revisit, a topic we haven't touched on in 2.5 years. So back in November of 2018, you, John, and I, excuse me, recorded an episode around the concept of North Star metrics. And we talked about it. It was an interesting conversation because I know, like, when, you know, coming into that, you had voiced, you know, some concerns around like growth hacking trends and those kind of things. But I know we left that conversation with you really thinking about North Star metrics and just the quick, you know, paraphrase definition of a North Star metric. It's some kind of measure of success that is broad enough to show that you're moving in the right direction. I probably just butchered that definition, but again, the goal is, you know, not to get lost in the minutia of statistics and the health of the business. You know, if our North Star metric is this particular thing, and if this particular thing increases, that means we're moving in the right direction. And then all of the smaller, you know, more specific metrics will follow. So what I wanted to revisit that today, and then, you know, also ask the question, like, you know, in that time, what is your thought changed around that as that term is becoming more and more used?
Yeah.
What is 33 Sticks North Star metric? I wanted to kind of touch on that a bit, but then I think, again, you know, the uproar, you know, the conversation you got started, you know, the comparison of North Star metrics. You know, it's obvious based on what you were talking about that their North Star metric is different from what may
alignment of North Star.
Alignment of it. Yeah, exactly. So I guess let's start with, before we dig into what is our North Star metric, because I think that ties also into a lot of the conversations you and I have been having internally. What, you know, give everybody some context if they haven't seen it yet. I'll also link the post to the show notes about you know, what happened yesterday and kind of what popped off.
Yeah, and yesterday was just a culmination of things, and I'm gonna stop short from naming any names on the podcast. You can go look at my social posts. I don't take down social posts, so it's there for you to go see. You can see who I was talking about, but this isn't specific to any one vendor, because this happens a lot in the vendor agency relationships, and really broader than that in the vendor. What's the right word? Ecosystem. Relationships where you have a lot of things that pop up, especially around very big and popular MarTech vendors. You have whole communities pop up around it. You have businesses pop up around it. You have fans and detractors that pop up around it. So you have this entire ecosystem that tends to revolve around these suns, which are these massive MarTech vendors. And unfortunately, what ends up happening a lot is vendors don't really do a good job of thinking about their ecosystem as a whole. What vendors are really good at is being black holes, and they want everything to be within their walls. You see this all the time with vendors wanting to own the image of their own brand, wanting to own all of the documentation of their brand, wanting to own all of the communication of their brand. And so if you think about it, it's very, very difficult to do that, because again, these things just pop up around these companies, and they're almost like little satellites that orbit it. And I think that these companies would be much better served viewing it that way and supporting these satellites that rotate around them as the sun, rather than viewing themselves as the black hole and trying to just suck everything in that is around them and destroying this network of satellites that really could be of value to them. And we see this all the time in conjunction with the topic of this podcast. It often comes down to a misalignment of what our North Star metrics are. And for the vast majority, if not all of these very large MarTech companies, their North Star metric is quarterly earnings. That's it, because they're publicly traded companies, they're beholden to Wall Street, and they have to hit almost unattainable quarter-over-quarter growth, or their stock price gets dinged. Their executives get upset because their compensation is highly made up of stock, and which means their compensation goes down. And it's just a recipe for a really, really, really crappy experience as part of that ecosystem, as an employee of that company, as a client, as a customer of that company. It's just very toxic to be in that environment, unless your North Star metric happens to be the exact same, and that we're in alignment, that our goals are both the same, that we're both trying to maximize quarterly earnings. In that case, it can work out. But if your North Star metric is any different than that, we have a mismatch of expectations on what you're trying to do and what we're trying to do. And that often comes across as a diverging path that looks like a competitive path, when in reality, it's not. So my blow up yesterday was that. I see our aim and our goal to delight the companies that we work with. A lot of the companies that we work with are on a handful of major MarTech vendors, and I see it as our aim to make sure that they are getting the greatest value out of those platforms. Now, that may not translate to quarterly earnings this quarter, but we have a proven track record over 8 years of doing business that it absolutely translates to maximizing customer lifetime value. If you're engaged with 33 Sticks, you're going to be maximized as a customer of a given MarTech brand, because we are going to help you get the most out of it, which means you're going to use it more, longer, and you're most likely going to buy more product from that company than less. We've proven that time and time again. But that's in misalignment with the vendors. And so, we're not seen as aligning with their needs to drive quarterly results. And so that really is what set me off yesterday. Is one of the vendors that we're a partner with took some very strong actions that were aimed at increasing their quarterly profit. Unfortunately, it made us look really crappy as a partner, not only a partner of them, but also as a partner with our client. And I took issue with that. And again, my biggest issue is the short-sightedness of vendors looking at just quarterly results. If they were able to step back for just a few minutes and say, wow, we may sell a little bit more this quarter, but we're putting at risk a proven pipeline where if this client is engaged with 33 Sticks, they're going to continue to be our customer and going to increase their spend with us over time. They're incapable of seeing that, and that's my frustration.
So if, with this, what you're saying is that then, what we would consider our North Star metric is not in alignment with theirs. What would you say 33 Sticks North Star metric is?
It's a good question. My North Star metric, I think, is I will probably get torn apart by business gurus, um, by those that are looking to what's the term, hack the growth for the win, to growth hack, because my North Star metric is really difficult to put a firm number on. It's hard to quantify it as a number, but my North Star metric is how happy are the people that we are working with. That leads and guides the vast majority of my decisions. And who we are working with is broad. It fits in at least 4 different categories. We work with our employees. We work with the employees of the companies that engage with us. We work with the employees at the companies that we partner and do business with from a services product standpoint. And we work with people in our network, in our ecosystem, that may not be paying us, may not be in a paid engagement with us, but we work with them as well. We create content for them. Hopefully they listen to our podcast. Maybe we engage with them on social channels. That is my North Star metric. Of those people that we're engaging with, how happy are we making them? And it's fluffy. I've been again accused of being a hippie CEO, managing with quote rainbows and hacky sacks, but it is a little bit fuzzy. But what I have found is that when you make people happy, when you make people successful, the money shows up. The problem with that is you can't manage like that if you're a public company. Wall Street doesn't care about happiness. Wall Street doesn't care that the people you're working with feel better about their lives. All they care about is how much money did you make this quarter? So I understand that what I'm saying from a North Star metric perspective is going to be completely lost on anyone that works at a public company, because it just doesn't make sense. For us, we can do it. We're not beholden to shareholders. We're not beholden to investors that are pushing us to make a certain amount this quarter. So we don't have to forego happiness in order to hit some arbitrary number. And for me, that is critically important. And honestly is one of the main reasons why I left the corporate world behind. It was making me completely miserable and unhappy. And the reason why is from the top down, that our goals were misaligned. The goals of the company, of every company I worked for, maximize quarterly profits at all costs, which puts that as a mismatch with making people happy more times than not. And I did not want to replicate that. But I get it. I understand the naysayers. I've talked with a handful of companies over the years that had shown interest in purchasing 33 sticks. And when we started talking about it and said, well, what is your quarterly growth rate? What are you doing year over year? I'm like, I don't know. Whatever the market tells us we can grow, that's what we grow. No, you can't run a business that way. You can't do it. You have to double every year, or you have to have a growth goal of X every year, and you have to hit it. I'm like, nope. We grow as much as the market says we can grow, and we're happy with that. So I get that doesn't work for most people, but that's what works for us.
So not to sound all planned interview-ish.
Well, it's not, because we didn't plan it.
Yeah. But not to sound like I've got these canned questions, but you made me think about it then, like, if, what you're using to measure success is happiness. There's no such thing as, units of happiness or percentage of happiness increase. I actually have a genuine question. Like, how do you keep your finger on the pulse there? Like, what are some of the things that you do to say, okay, like we're moving in the right direction?
I mean, first and foremost, it's about communication. It's really it should be the biggest part of my job. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they were asking, like, what does your day-to-day look like? And I said, unfortunately, right now I'm doing way too much client work. And they're like, well, why do you say unfortunate? You're really, really good at analytics. I'm like, I am really good. The people I've hired are even better than me. So the fact is that if you're engaged with us and you have me on the account, you're probably getting top-notch service. But if you were engaged with one of our other people, it'd be even better, because what I think I'm better at is just connecting with people and having conversations. And I have a really good sense and feel for what people are thinking and how they're feeling. We've done lots of personalities survey things over the years, tests. On the Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ, which is a very, very, very rare personality type that is highly intuitive and sensing of others, can feel kind of almost on a cosmic level what other people are thinking and feeling. And I think, that is one of my superpowers, is that is what I have the ability to do. So I prioritize time internally. I have one-on-ones every week without exception with every person in the company. We're small enough that I can do that. We're not to where I want to be yet, but with a healthy chunk of our business, I have reoccurring one-on-ones with our primary stakeholders from an executive standpoint. I try to spend a good amount of time on LinkedIn, on Twitter, kind of keeping a pulse of our community. And I use that to get a sense of, are we doing things in the right direction? So from an employee perspective, are the choices we're making our employees happy? From a client perspective, is the work that we're doing and the way that we're engaging with our clients, is it making them happy? And from an ecosystem perspective, is the work that we're doing, is the content we're creating, are the conversations that we're starting, is the fact that we're being transparent in how we do business, is that making the ecosystem that we work within happy? And that's how I measure it. And it's a bit of a stick your finger in the wind and kind of feel which way the wind is blowing. But directionally it works. I know when decisions we're making are leading to less happiness in employees, and we change that. I know that, if we're engaging in one way or another that's not maximizing happiness with the client, I can pinpoint that really quickly and we make those changes. So while again, it may be difficult to graph that out over time and look at a metric, it is something that I can sense and feel. And we do have some proxies for putting that in a numeric way so we can visualize it and keep a pulse on it. But it's a little bit of science and it's a whole lot of art. But I think that's how analytics is anyway. Analytics isn't a pure science. It isn't pure mathematics. There's a lot of art and intuition that has to go into analytics as well. So it kind of mirrors that nicely.
Mm-hmm. How have clients been receptive? Have you had like the flat out conversation about how you're measuring success, or is it just kind of also been they've just kind of picked up on the vibe and are are responding one way or another?
It's definitely the latter. I would like it to be more the former, both with our clients and with the marketplace as a whole. But we haven't really formalized it and talked about it in that way. It's been much more organic. And the way that I talk about it with prospects or others that are interested in talking about the way that we do business, I tell them it's been one of my biggest struggles, in that it's really, really difficult for me to tell you what it feels like to be engaged with 33 Sticks. But buy services from us, and I will guarantee you within a week, you will say, wow, this is completely different than anything I've experienced before. I love it. I want more of it. In fact, I have a quote from one of our clients that I love, where she said something like, I just wish every agency that we were involved with worked just like you guys. And I'm like, man, that's got to be the highest compliment, we've received, because it was really meaningful, right? It's like, we wish every agency we worked with did business the way you do business. This is something new and unique. So yeah, it's been mostly organic. We do have plans to make that more formalized and start talking about it with our clients, but I also want to start talking about it with the marketplace. And I think it's a completely fair and valid conversation to have, and not to throw other agencies under the bus or attack their way of doing business, but truly educating the market on options, because we're not. Was my light totally freaking out? You see that?
Yeah, it is. The camera's picking up something.
That was crazy. So now I lost my train of thought. So we're not the best fit for everybody. We're not a perfect fit for everybody. And I think that's okay. I truly believe that both products and services that are positioned as one size fits all, an all-in-one solution, is rarely the best solution. It tends to be a highly mediocre solution, and sometimes that's okay. I mean, I own, where is it? Right there somewhere. This all-in-one HP printer. And for my needs, it's completely fine. But if I needed like a really, really high-end scanner, or I needed a printer to print like photo quality stuff, that ain't it. You know, that's not going to do it. And it's the same with services. You know, I think there are a lot of agencies that are a all-in kind of, we do everything. And for lots of companies, that's completely fine. But for the companies that are looking for something more dedicated and high-end, it doesn't fit. And I think that that's one of the conversations that hasn't happened in the marketplace, not only from a skills and delivery perspective, but more importantly from a experience perspective. And that kind of goes to what does it feel like to be engaged with 33 Sticks? When you think about buying services, no one has that conversation. They just say, well, what are you good at? Are you good at Google Analytics? Can you do SQL? What are your skills in Python or R? Like, those are the conversations. Let's vet it out like a checklist of hard skills. No one ever says, well, what would it feel like to actually be engaged with this agency? And I think that that's really unfortunate, because there is a feel to it. There is an experience with it. Whether it's purposefully designed or not, you will have an experience buying a product, buying a service. So why isn't that part of the conversation when we're vetting out the types of services that we want to buy? And so that's really one of my core missions this year, is to start to educate the market on not only thinking about the skills that you need to vet out when thinking about hiring a services company, but also vetting out the experience that you're going to be getting into when you buy services from that company. And one of the things that I want to start talking about more transparently is that this is the 33 Sticks experience. This is what it will be like for you to engage with 33 Sticks. This is how it will make you feel. And this is different from other experiences you have. How do I know? Because I've offered those other experiences as part of another company. I've received those other experiences as a buyer of services from other companies. It's not right or wrong. It's just a different experience. Here's the 33 Sticks experience. Here's this other experience. What experience do you want to have, Jim? We're both really good at analytics. That should be off the table. Now it's, what experience do you want to have? That's really what you should be buying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays so nicely with our North Star metric, because if we're talking about just the hard skills and how much we can charge for that and what you're buying, then there's a misalignment. But our metric is happiness. How does it make you feel? And so why shouldn't we be educating the market on that? Why shouldn't we be selling that? Why shouldn't we be talking about that as part of how we work? Because if ultimately that's our measure, but we don't expose that to our clients or our prospects, then we've set a misalignment. Right? And our clients and prospects are thinking, well, we just need you to crank out work. We don't care how you make us feel. We're going to be misaligned. And so that's why I think it's critically important for us to be screaming it from the rooftops, grabbing megaphones and yelling for anyone that can hear. Here is why we do what we do. This is our purpose, and this is what we measure against. So if you want to engage with us as a partner, as a client, as just someone in the industry, this is what we do. Does that align with what you want to do? And it's something that we've all missed. We all do a horrible job at doing that. We want to be one of the first that fixes that we start being very clear and intentional on why we do what we do, and have people self-select in because that's what they want to do as well.
Mm-hmm. And I have a follow-up question, but I just don't know how to ask it.
Okay.
How do you respond then? Like, if it's about the experience, if it's about the feel of working with 33 Sticks as compared to somebody else, someone comes along and is like, I really don't care. I need you for the hard skills. I know you have some of the best when it comes to these specific hard skills. Don't care about the experience. Just want to engage with you for those.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you respond to that? Because in that case, okay.
Yeah,
that's simple.
It's that simple. And I have done that. We'll do that. Because again, we can do that because our North Star metric isn't quarterly results.
Mhm.
If our North Star metric, if I had some arbitrary, we need to grow X, we need to sell Y, then I would be put in a position of having to take that in order to meet that goal. We don't, so I don't. And I think that is what has allowed us to keep this unique culture going for so many years. I mean, going on a decade at this point. We've been able to do that because we don't have to put that in question just to hit some quarterly number. It's the long game. It's bringing in the right types of clients. And so I actually empathize a lot with people that may feel that way, but are in a position where they are helpless to do anything about it. I think about these people that work at these vendors that they're measured towards quarterly results. I don't put the blame on the people on the ground. They're just doing the work, and often they're helpless to do otherwise because their paycheck, their career growth is dependent on it. And so I don't fault them. I do feel incredibly bad for them. I do empathize with them because it's incredibly depressing, honestly, to work in an environment where your vision is so misaligned with the vision of what you're being held accountable to do. It is such a depressing place to be in. And so that's why it is incredibly easy for me to say that. Jason, we don't care. We want to buy a block of hours. We just want you to crank out work. We don't care about the experience you're creating. We don't care about being friends and talking about personal things. It's so easy for me to say, got it. Go find someone else. There's lots of agencies that align with you on that. We don't align with you on that. Because the minute I bring them in the door, they're now a virus within our system that is going to attack the way that we do things, and is going to put at risk our health as a company that has a center and a balance around our culture and way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. One last question as we start to wrap up. We're a little short on time this week.
I actually like this runtime. Like,
yeah, it's really good.
I know that we could hit hours and hours a lot, but it feels like a nice consumable chunk.
Exactly.
Anyway,
what would you say to someone that is like, that sounds all well and good? I agree with it. I like it. I think you're going down the right path. I would like to do it, but I just can't. Like, and I don't even know if that's the best way to ask that, but just kind of like, yeah, that's great and all. It sounds good, but I'm still going to do it this way. Like, someone who doesn't know, like, is either having trouble truly embracing it, or, they say they see the value in it. They say it aligns with them personally, but then they just default to what they've always done.
Yeah. And I hear that, a lot. I think we're fortunate in that I heard that a lot as an employee. These ideals, these things that we're doing as a company, our culture and our core values, this isn't something that just started day one when 33.6 started. These are ideals that have been matured and developed over years of working. And I've always wanted to put them to the test. And ultimately, I think that's what got me close to the edge of jumping off and starting my own business. Was I had been told far too many times that this wouldn't work. And I needed to find the answer for myself. I didn't know if it would work or not. I thought it would work. I had seen glimpses of it working by trying to deploy something here and there. But to their point, I had never actually tried to make it work. So I didn't know. And so for me, that was kind of my first step was, you might be right. This might not work, but I need to find out for myself. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I'll be humble enough to admit that it doesn't work, and I'll learn from it and I'll do something different, but I gotta try it. And that's my advice back to people. Like, if you truly believe in doing something differently and you think it's going to work and you have passion about it and you've seen signs and validation that it's the right approach for you and the type of clients that you want to work with and customers that you want to attract and employees that you want to be part of that journey, do it. Go and do it. There's no one's going to be able to give you a firm answer if it's going to work or not than you. So if you truly believe in it, the easy path is going to do it the way it's always been done. That's the less risky path. And if you just want to start a company, if you just want to do something new internally in your team, this isn't just about entrepreneurs. We're all entrepreneurs to some degree. We're all running our own kind of brands and businesses within the companies we work in. And so this applies there as well. And if you have some ideas that you want to do differently, but you default the way that it's always been done because it's safe, it's going to ensure my paycheck, it's going to ensure my revenue, then you're never really going to change anything. You're going to be stuck in the status quo. And if you want to do something different, you're ultimately going to end up not liking what you do. If you truly believe you have a better way of doing it, do it. And let the actual proof of that come through, that it either is going to work or not. It's not going to work every time, and that's okay. But don't let people deter you because they tell you it's not going to work. If you truly believe in it, go and do it and find out for yourself. That's what I would tell people. That's what I do tell people.
And I think that is the perfect spot to wrap up.
Awesome. This was a good chat.
Yeah, no, this was fun, and the timing came together well.
Yeah,
a couple of various happenings kind of all tied together nicely into the topic.
Yep. Good stuff, and hopefully people found some value out of this. What I've found as we're kind of putting out more and more content is that it's really causing people to slow down and think and question and think about what do they want for their team, for their company, for their lives. And to me, that's awesome. So I'm hoping that this is another one of those conversations where it really hits people in the face and they take a step back and say, man, I really need to think about that. I think that's an awesome measure of the success of our content and our podcast, is it really causing people to think. And I think this episode absolutely hits on that.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, we spend 45 years of our life working, deferring the ability to enjoy life until, work, and people like they grind through it. And that was something that kind of came to me about 10 years ago. Was like, do you want to be unhappy for 45 years and grind through and do something you don't want to do,
right,
to then retire? And then, I've shared with you personally, but like my grandfather, he worked his ass off 2 jobs until he retired, and he died a year and a half after he retired.
Yeah. We have to enjoy the now, the moment.
Yeah. And like, this is where it starts to get very Zen-like, but it's something that sticks with me. And when I get fired up about something, or I get stressed out, or I start whining about something, like, just think about, like, I try to put it in perspective like that.
It's a great visual to have. For sure. We can't, and because we all tell ourselves that, and we're kind of going down a different tangent here right at the end, but we all tell ourselves that I hate this job. This job makes me miserable, but it's a means to an end. And like in 30 years, then I'll be happy. Yeah. To hell with that, man. Make decisions that are going to make you happy today. You don't know what's going to be there in 30 years.
Yeah. And that's why, like, he died when I was like in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that always stuck with me. He worked, retired, then got sick and was gone a year and a half after.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So, well, not to
not
on a bummer,
but
and honestly, if anything, it's been, this sounds morbid, this sounds horrible, but that was kind of like an inspiration. Like, enjoy work, like, do work that you enjoy, so you're not constantly deferring having fun, enjoying what you're doing,
and be happy at work. Just find some place where you can be happy. You may not make the most money, but damn it, happiness is once you've reached a certain threshold, enough is enough.
Well, don't they say like anything, like I heard somebody saying, and I don't know the veracity of this, but it really made me think. They were thinking, like, when it comes to income, yes, like, would I be happy making $1 million a year? Yes. But really, to be happy, 70 grand a year, believe it or not.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. Now, you can do a lot with money. So if you made a lot more, you could do a lot more good. Not a lot of people do that. In fact, more money often makes people more miserable. You look at these people that make multi-million-dollar a year and they're sad, they're depressed. Like, money doesn't buy
miserable.
That. Miserable. Once you have your basic needs covered, there's a point where enough is enough. How much is enough is enough. And how much are we going to continue to chase that in lieu of happiness? And I'm going to end this on a verse from the Tao, because there is a perfect chapter in the Tao that talks about this. Hold on, I got to find it. I've got to stretch this out while I find it. I should just have this up because there's always, huh?
You're typing. You know, for our audio listeners, just
I'm
giving
typing,
them filling dead air.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Happiness. Okay. This is, and I had this on my Twitter profile for years and years and years. It's probably my favorite chapter from the Tao, and it's the one that I resonate with the most. And if you say 2 words from this from Hila, she will instantly resonate with it, because there's 2 words in here that just kind of defines it. And I'm going to read the whole thing. It's only 3 paragraphs. Fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Success or failure, which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. I mean, to me, that just hits it, right? Like, you have everything. If you're looking for more and more money, you're never going to have enough. You're never going to reach happiness. Realize that once you have your basic needs covered, you have nothing lacking. Everything belongs to you. Be content with that. Anyway, that's my favorite. Good place.
No, that was really good. I like that. I'm going to have to bookmark that. I'm going to have to look it up and bookmark it.
Cool.
All right. This was awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Catch everybody later.